This is the ERP Advisor.
The ERP Advisor's overview of Oracle.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. This summer, ERP Advisors Group is spotlighting the most prominent vendors in the ERP software market. Today we will be discussing Oracle's offerings and providing key insights into our experiences working with them. Sean Wendell is my guest for today. Sean, thank you for joining me.
Sure, you bet.
Yeah,
Thank you for thanking me after doing so many sessions
Yes.
together too, and not being like, it's him again.
No, I love it. It's great. It's great. So, oh my gosh, Oracle, to use your words, is one of the big boys in the software industry.
That's right.
One of the largest platforms in the world.
Yeah.
So with that, Sean, let me ask you, can you tell us about Oracle and who they are and what they do?
I can. Again, as always, if I leave out key details, please tell us. Please,
Yes.
please. Good.
We welcome any feedback.
Seriously,
for sure. Yeah.
it's the truth. Oracle is it's a really interesting company from an ERP perspective. You know, every ERP we talk about the needs. You got to know your needs. But the other thing we say is that every company is just totally different. When you really understand how these vendors are set up and what their history is, that's where you start to realize, oh, that's why they are that way, right? Because Oracle was founded in 1977.
Okay.
So it's been around a long time. Not that long, though, as we both have
I think
birthdays.
I might be a little bit older.
I know, right? Exactly. But you know, really started around the development of technology around databases. Now, there may have been even other things that I'm not even aware of. But Oracle was really one of the main founders of the Relational Database Management System, the RDBMS.
Okay.
And that's Larry Ellison, right? And a lot of other people for sure. But when you think about kind of the underpinnings of what makes ERP, like you could really go down a very, 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 very deep rabbit hole. And we don't usually do that on these calls. Because like we talked about, you know, we're more kind of focusing on, you know, the real guys and gals out there that have to make these decisions. You know, when you've been at IBM for 25 years and now you move over to another company, like you know what you're doing. You don't need our calls. That's not who these calls are for. So if you're from IBM for 25 years, you might just want to end it now.
And then through several implementations and selections, what have you.
You made the decisions. Oh, my friends all work over there. I can make a few calls. That's not who this is for. This is for a, you know, $500 million distributor who's out there like, oh my God, I've been on the same app for like 20 years and I got to get off this thing. What do I do? That's who we're talking to. Good. But that being said, you know, Oracle really is, like I said, this concept of a relational database management system, which was sort of a new way of building enterprise applications out, a new way of storing business data over what was there before, right? There were cards, there were flat files, like I programmed in COBOL, believe it or not. And all the data is just in this flat file, and it's just there, and the program sort of reads it in and has to do all this parsing and everything. The Relational Database Management System changed that, where we could point to data, index it, primary fields, and I can quickly get out of my own realm very fast there. But the bottom line is, when you think about Oracle, you should really think with, these guys are pretty tech savvy. They're all tech savvy, but Oracle's like bottom stack all the way up to, you know, I'm going to enter my timesheet sort of tech savvy, like that whole thing. So. And along the way, like we've talked about on some of our other calls, Oracle made some really strategic acquisitions for some other enterprise application vendors. That sort of helped them to build out their stack. They've bought many other sort of enterprise apps along the way. Like I believe, I have to check on this for sure, but like Micros, which is one of the top point of sale systems. Like you go to a restaurant, you see Oracle Micros, right? That's one of their solutions. They have great solutions around transportation management solutions that dispatch and trucks and running there. They've got other supply chain planning solutions, their CRM solutions, as well as Oracle's really made major acquisitions in sort of the middleware kind of technology, the architecture, like the hardware side as well, with some storage companies and Exadata, some other things that they've done over the years, Exadata, sorry. And so and then you also have sort of this Oracle Cloud Infrastructure kind of focus too over the last 10, 20 years, really, where they're looking at cloud computing and sort of network services and storage services. So they really are trying to bring together a full stack of solutions.
Package, right.
Full package, that's exactly right. So I like that approach a lot. We'll get to the apps in a minute. But I like it because, and I've said this on industry analyst calls before, that enterprise apps it's actually pretty dangerous to be in that business, because wouldn't you love to be, if you were into this kind of stuff, which I know you're not, but if you were like a hacker, wouldn't you love to be known as the one who brought down Oracle?
Oh, right.
So you can imagine what these guys and gals are putting up with on a day-by-day basis in terms of the attacks.
Right.
So the fact that they have full volition over the whole stack is actually a strategic competitor to these guys. So love that about Oracle. But on the ERP side, right, that's where we have some legacy systems that we'll talk about, and then we have the newer systems going forward called Oracle Cloud, Fusion, ERP, Human Capital Management, which competes with Workday, and many other advanced planning with the Hyperion Financial Management Solution, which I think is now called Oracle something, Oracle Planning and Management, or Oracle CPM, Oracle Corporate Performance Management. Used to be Hyperion, which is one of the top planning solutions in the world. So really nice application stack too. And that's, when we're talking about Oracle, that's what we're talking about. There's a lot.
Right.
And there's NetSuite. Don't forget that too.
Right. Exactly. Well, let me ask you this. What are Oracle's most prominent features? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And then also, too, maybe I can tag team it with what kind of industries is NetSuite a good fit for?
You bet. You bet. So we will sort of separate out Oracle from its products, right? Now, so Oracle owns NetSuite. That was a purchase made maybe.
Was it in the 90s?
No. It was only about 5 or 6 years ago
it was.
that Oracle bought NetSuite. So it's somewhat recent, but not really. But it kind of is. But the key thing with so you've got sort of NetSuite. That's the key thing, which is really a global business unit. It's kind of a separate product. Then you have Oracle Cloud, and then that's a different product. And then Oracle Cloud has Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. There's all the infrastructure tools there. And then there's sort of the Oracle Cloud Enterprise Applications. So Oracle Cloud Fusion ERP, I believe, is the most recent name. The names have changed a little bit. It's a little bit like Microsoft. But there's an ERP solution, right? There's a human capital management solution, like I mentioned. There's planning solutions. There's a bunch of other solutions that sort of fit under that Oracle side. The thing with Oracle that you really have to understand is that Oracle, of all of the customers, of all of the vendors that we work with, they're probably the one that took the most responsibility to say, you know what, we have to get all of these apps onto a new platform when cloud really became more prevalent. And so they looked at J.D. Edwards, they looked at PeopleSoft, they looked at Oracle e-Business Suite, which were the apps written on top of their relational database management system. And they said, we need to, there's like 20 words that were converge, bring together, all these concepts of bringing them onto one platform, or fusion. That's where this concept of fusion came in. How do we fuse all these assets from these different solutions into one that has the best of all of these applications? And Oracle has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars doing that. And I would say near the end of that process for sure. And the products themselves that are coming out of that, are pretty good. So to get back to your question around industries, so the Oracle tools work across services, they work across manufacturing, definitely multi-company, large conglomerate businesses supporting the financials around multiple entities, consolidation, those kinds of capabilities for sure, financial reporting and compliance for public companies. Great solutions for that for sure.
Okay. Well, can you talk to us about, from your experience, working a lot with Oracle, NetSuite, the different platforms that they offer, why does Oracle tend to win over their competitors?
There's a couple reasons. There's definitely sort of a tech savviness to an Oracle deal. So if we have a company that has Oracle people, right, that their database administrators, their custom apps run on Oracle infrastructure, they're definitely more inclined towards the Oracle platform for there. That's one reason. I think another reason is they have a killer install base. If you look at PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, e-business suite, several other things that they've purchased over the years, those customers, they don't necessarily want to take the risk of going to a brand new platform sometimes. So they'll stay with Oracle, which is good. I do think that, Oracle's probably struggle in just my own teeny tiny little opinion here. This is just John Windle, is the execution in the market hasn't been as good as we'd like it to be. So just yesterday, I talked to a client that we selected Oracle e-business suite for 10 years ago. And now they're like, okay, we're ready to get, more into the cloud and whatever else, right? And they started working with a representative who then changed. And then they had another person that they're working with, but that person doesn't know anything about this particular company. And when I talk to organizations, I hear that a lot. But we have found the road to the truth at Oracle, where we know the people now that we need to talk to.
That's right.
That can really substantiate what the products are. And I'll tell you, inevitably, the thing about Oracle that I love is that there are these really great people that have been with the organization for a long time. And man, they really care about doing the right technology solution for their customers. So I would say of all of the vendors, I have to think about this one. I think that Oracle is more aligned around like kind of values, if you will. Not to say that SAP or Workday or the others aren't. They are, but I think Oracle as an organization is really done a good job of we know what's best for our customers. Therefore, we're going to make these strategic investments and we're going to suck it up and try to do the best we can with these technologies because someone's got to do it.
Right.
They just bought Cerner, which is a huge healthcare company, software solution.
Okay.
And they're doing that because the healthcare records are very fragmented and somebody has to take the responsibility to get this patient care sort of patient information in a way that doctors and healthcare providers can just be more efficient and effective with helping people.
That's right.
Now, I'm sure there's money and there's this and that. I get it for sure. But no one else is taking on that problem.
Interesting, right?
So that's what I've seen from Oracle is that there's, Larry Ellison, the owner, he also, was a pretty good investor. He was a very early investor, like the investor in NetSuite.
Right.
As well as in Salesforce. And those two investments alone may have been enough for an individual to probably say, I'm out, right? I'm going to go.
He could have started it, made his money, and moved on, but he stayed with it.
Stayed with it, right. He could have said, hey, I'm moving to the beach. Now, he didn't just move to the beach. He bought a beach. Right. At the island. I think it's Molokai, right? In Hawaii. Oh, yeah. He owns, I think it's Molokai.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Which, good for him, right? Because this guy, if you think about the technology, this is the thing that I'm kind of getting a little bit off base, but it's good. It's good for our listeners to understand this, right? That it's not just about Oracle, the relational database management system, the infrastructure, and then the apps. It's not just about that. It's the ecosystem that's around these organizations. And it's the people, right, that have learned the skills and are there to implement and do all this stuff. And, Microsoft is the same. SAP is the same too. But from an Oracle perspective, and I definitely was there, right? So I have
firsthand,
insights.
right?
I know firsthand, right? But if you think about the millions of people that this, team of Larry Ellison and his partners, I think maybe I'm kind of looking here quickly, Bob Miner, Ed Oates. I don't know how long those guys were there, if they're there still, but we certainly know Larry's still there. Like that guy's written it out since 1977, and he's still the head. That I think about that one person and all of the people that he's shared the power with, including me personally, and, in our organization, we don't make any money from them now, but we still look to their solutions. I think of all the people at NetSuite. I think of all the people I knew who do ABS. I think of all the people who did PeopleSoft. I think of all the clients that implemented JD Edwards and how JD Edwards ran their businesses. That's what I love about Oracle is that, and I think you could again say that about all the vendors for sure, but just for me personally, I've seen that, I've experienced it. And that's what I do like about this company is they're willing to take on these challenges because they know out of duty in the technology space, someone's got to do it.
That's right.
SAP does it too, Microsoft does it too, but it just has been my experience that Oracle will take a really hard problem that sure there's going to be return in it because that is the thing.
Right.
When you're dealing with Oracle and their salespeople, there is a reputation in the market that they're pretty tight in terms of financially. Like they're going to put the screws to you. Yeah, they are.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, guys, come on. You got to be a little more flexible here. We had a client like that recently. But, I at least know where Oracle's coming from. They're trying to make money. They're trying to take healthcare and make it something that is better for people and that. So anyway.
Well, a client knows what they're getting with NetSuite.
Exactly. They know what they're getting with Oracle Cloud Fusion ERP. They know what they're getting when they work with Oracle. And some of our clients have literally said, I'm not doing business with Oracle. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm still going to make sure that they don't offer something that you really, really need in place. Okay, they don't, fine. We'll go on to somebody else, right? But it's probably one of the only vendors, to be honest with you. Today's a very honest day, by the way, of our vendors.
I appreciate that.
Yes, that I will literally have. I can think of one CFO right now who's like, yeah, we're willing to look at anything except for Oracle.
Preemptively, they were like, they're out. We don't even want to look at that.
No, when you dig under the covers a little bit, we did have a contract for 500 users, and they did do an audit of us, and we had 1,000 users, and then they gave me a big bill, and I didn't really want to pay the bill. Okay, so there's there's sides to everything, but but that's the thing. Like Oracle's out to maximize the return for shareholders, and so they are going to do those audits, and they are going to say, hey, you're only supposed to do this. You're doing that. You owe me, right? And we're going to go for it. Like it's.
Well, if a client signed a contract and it's in there,
that's right. That's right. Now, could they be nicer about it? Could they be a little more like, hey, let's collaborate and maybe we'll split it in half? I don't know.
Of course.
Sure. But at the end of the day, you know what you're getting with Oracle. That's the key.
Right. Well, you touched on this a little bit, and maybe can you expand more on what a client should expect to consider or expect from NetSuite's pricing structure? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, you sort of have this, you've got Oracle, and then you have each of its products, one of them being NetSuite, that has a pricing methodology. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier this summer too. We went into the whole in-depth on that.
Yes.
But it's users and modules and then some technology stuff and equals your full price, right? Over a certain amount of time, and then there's an annual cost, right? Pretty straightforward. Same model with the Oracle Cloud Fusion ERP with HCM, that they're driven, the pricing is very much driven on what you're actually licensing. It's a very evident, clear what the pricing model is based off of. So super straightforward, right? Now, recognizing that pricing is list price, that there's negotiations that you can do there for sure up to a certain point. They're not going to give it away for free unless you're like a nonprofit, and then they usually do have nonprofit pricing where they give you free licenses up to a certain amount, and then you have to purchase more. But it's a very evident, it's very clear what their license model is.
What if a client chooses NetSuite but doesn't need all the offerings that a specific platform or Oracle has to offer? Did I say NetSuite? I might have said NetSuite.
That's okay.
But or if all the offerings Oracle has to offer, can they negotiate their price based on what they would use, or do they buy what they buy?
Yes. To both. They buy what they buy, and there's negotiations.
Okay.
So it's again, I think if I think of all of our deals that we've negotiated, I think Oracle is willing to look at. I mean, there's definitely set rules and policies, right? But at the same time, there is a situation where maybe a certain client needs a portion of the application, but they get other stuff too, right? We've seen that Oracle's willing to say, hey, okay, let's figure this out where it makes sense for you.
Okay.
Are they going to do that every time? Absolutely not. I don't want to set that as a policy, but I want to say that because it's important to people listening to this as they're talking to Oracle. They need to be clear. Here's what I need. Don't just say, "Oh my God, the pricing's terrible." Well, the pricing's terrible because you're probably buying something you don't need. If it's what you needed, you'd look at it and say, "Oh, I guess that's what it is."
Right.
Oh, but I don't need this, this, and this. Tell them. And be willing to share that in a way that's constructive. Don't shove it down their throat.
Right.
And then I think they're willing to at least look at that and see if there's something they can do. They might not be able to, but at least have that discussion.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And let me ask you this, from your experience too, what is the partner ecosystem with Oracle? What does that look like?
Yeah, the partner system, the ecosystem for Oracle is diverse. So unlike some of the other calls we've done recently, there's a lot of partners around the Oracle ecosystem, tons and tons and tons. Like Oracle World is the sort of the conference that Oracle puts on every year. It used to be in San Francisco. I'm sure it'll still be in San Francisco when that opens up, if it hasn't already. And there'll be 10, 20,000 people. Right? They kind of take over downtown, put carpets out. It's pretty cool, actually. It's super cool, especially when the weather's nice.
Yeah, right?
That's the thing about San Francisco. You
never
got to be careful of the weather.
That's right.
But there's partners that are, all the way down at the database layer, at the, the data center sort of cloud services layer, at storage, there's the infrastructure, then there's the apps, and there's lots of different apps, partners out there that focus in micro verticals, not just a vertical or an industry, but a micro vertical. So, that organization, Oracle has really probably the most rich partner ecosystem of any of the ERP vendors by far. I know that, actually. I know that. I can say that and stand up and be proud with that because that's actually true. Yeah. The other vendors have different models. SAP has a ton of partners too, right? But you tend towards bigger kinds of organizations, right? There's some mid-sized partners, but then there's bigger. So Oracle has bigger partners, mid-size, also teeny tiny. There might be a firm of 5 people that all they do is one tiny thing. And then there's firms like Tata Consulting Services or PwC that I think we saw recently. One of the vendors has 10,000 people in their Oracle practice. Oh, wow. In one of the big 3 management consulting firms. Tons of people, right, in just that one area, and just that one thing. So, yeah, there are lots of partners for sure.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I think Oracle is huge, like I said. So we could continue this conversation for a long time, or we'll have to do another series. But thank you for, as always, sharing all your experience and knowledge with us.
Glad to do it.
It means a lot. So
thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Continue to be on the lookout for this limited multi-part series that will help advance your ERP knowledge and allow you to take advantage of over a century of combined ERP experience from our expert consultants here at EAG. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time.